right, everybody, welcome into episode 254 of the Leaning into Leadership podcast, the very first episode of the new year here on Leaning into Leadership. And I don't know about you, but every January, I find myself sitting in very similar conversations with leaders, principals, APs, district leaders. They're hopeful, they're motivated, and they're ready to do great work, but they're also still a little tired. They're a little guarded and maybe wondering how much they really have left in the tank to give to those that they lead. That's why today's conversation here on the show matters so very much. My guest today is one of my absolute favorite humans on the planet, Dr. Mark Brown. Now, if you know Mark, you know that there is a phrase that truly defines him, and that is being a hope dealer. Not someone who tries to be the source of hope for everyone else, but rather being someone who helps people find their own hope, even in the hard seasons, even when leadership feels kind of heavy. Now, as we kick off a brand new year, this conversation to me just feels very timely, grounding, and honestly, quite necessary. Mark shares what it really means to lead with hope, how to empower others without carrying everything yourself, and why your presence, listening, and self-care are leadership essentials, not extras. Now, before we jump into that conversation, I want to take a moment and thank the incredible partners that help make this show possible. Friends, I want to tell you about a partner that is doing some truly meaningful work in schools across the country. Our newest sponsor, Hey Tutor. Now, Hey Tutor delivers customized evidence-based high-dosage math and ELA tutoring to K-12 schools nationwide. Their focus is on in-person tutoring while also offering flexible online options, all tailored to meet the diverse student needs and, of course, be aligned with state standards. What really stands out to me is that Hey Tutor is one of the few tutoring programs that is vetted and has been awarded Stanford's National Student Support Association badge, which speaks volumes about the quality and the impact of their work. Hey Tutor recruits, trains, hires, and manages all tutors as Hey Tutor employees, meaning no extra burden on the school staff. Tutors work with students during the school day or after school in small group settings using an adaptive curriculum that learns as students do, and it tracks progress through an easy-to-use dashboard. Every program at Hey Tutor is customized. No one-size-fits-all approach. Whether it's push-in intervention, pull-out support, or after-school tutoring, Hey Tutor partners with schools to deliver scalable, data-driven solutions that improve student outcomes. If your school or district is looking for a tutoring partner that truly understands student support and instructional impact, Hey Tutor is definitely worth your time. Head over to heytutor.com and click on Learn More, or simply schedule a call. When you schedule a call, make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Leaning into Leadership podcast. Now, before we go further with our conversation with Mark Brown, there's another partner that I absolutely have to give a big shout out to. They've been with us for quite some time, and that's our friends at DigiCoach. Look, let's talk about leadership for a moment. If you're a school leader who wants to support your teachers without adding more stress, then you need to know about DigiCoach. DigiCoach is an easy-to-use mobile platform that allows leaders to provide positive, actionable feedback to teachers. It's feedback, too, that builds confidence, strengthens instructional practices, and supports their growth. What makes DigiCoach so powerful is the real-time data. Leaders can see whether the research-based strategies they're using are being implemented frequently and with fidelity, which helps schools move beyond gut feelings and into data-informed decision-making. Look, the data empowers leaders to coach more effectively, to support teachers more intentionally, and ultimately improve student outcomes, all without turning walkthroughs into those gotcha moments. Look, if you believe that feedback should be timely, supportive, and growth-focused, DigiCoach aligns perfectly with that philosophy. Head over to digicoach.com, check out what they have to offer, and make sure you tell them that Leaning into Leadership sent you over there. There's some very special partner pricing that is available if you mention the Leaning into Leadership podcast. Once again, that's digicoach.com and tell them that we sent you. Now, Folks, we've got this incredible conversation with Dr. Mark Brown. Let's not wait any longer. Let's jump into that conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, friends, welcome back into the show. My guest today is Dr. Mark Brown. And I'll tell you this, I've known Mark for a number of years. Mark is one of my absolute favorite people on the planet, and been looking forward to sitting down and having this conversation with Mark specifically. And this episode, the first episode here in 2026, very intentional with talking about being a dealer in hope. And that's what we're going to get to today. So let me tell you this about Mark before we welcome Mark into the show. Like many of us, Dr. Mark Brown wears many hats. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a school administrator, speaker, consultant, and so much more. But regardless of any title you put on Mark's name, he always strives to be a hope dealer. He is someone who desperately needed and relied on finding hope. And so Mark uses his life story to help others understand the power of hope. Because of his personal experience, Mark understands that when people experience real hope, it changes lives. As a current high school principal, Jostens Renaissance champion for the Northwest region, and the motivational speaker and consultant extraordinaire, Mark is on a mission to build an army of hope dealers. And that is what we are going to try to accomplish right here on Leading Into Leadership. Dr. Mark Brown, my friend, welcome into the podcast.
Hey, yeah, no, excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is a fun way for me to kick off 2026.
Absolutely. I think this is an awesome way to kick off 2026. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everybody who's listening, who's watching here on YouTube. Just a wonderful way to kick off the conversation. Mark, I want to go right at that phrase that I mentioned, right from your bio, this hope dealer. I know it's also the title of a book that you released during 2025, but let's talk a little bit about what that means. What does it mean to be a dealer in hope?
Yeah. So being a hope dealer, I think it's important to clarify that. I think sometimes when I first started using that term and started to try to use that to encourage people misinterpret it to think I'm going to be the source of hope for other people. And that's absolutely not what being a hope dealer is. My job as a hope dealer is not to be your source of hope and to be the person you look for to find your hope. It's how do I help you find your hope, not that you find your hope in me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I've had to clarify that for people, but I think that's an important point, is because I think when we try to be the hope dealer and try to be people's source of hope, we're aiming for something that it's not possible to be. And we're putting too much of the ownership on ourselves. And that's a very selfish leadership stance. And being a hope dealer is all about being selfless. And it's all about how do I show up in your story and come alongside you and help you find what you need to be that positive encourager, to be that sounding board. I think one of the best examples of what a hope dealer is just someone who listens without all the answers, without even knowing what to say in response. But I think so many people in this world, especially people who are in leadership roles, they need someone to just listen to them. And if I can come alongside them and encourage them just by listening to them and, kind of commiserate with them, to be sad with them, or to be excited with them. I think sometimes we think about hope in terms of how do I help the hopeless, but hope is for everyone. And so being a hope dealer is when I see someone have a victory in their life or when something's going really well, coming alongside them and celebrating them and encouraging them and telling them a good job and making sure that they feel seen, that they feel noticed, because it seems like people tend to notice when things don't go well and they point that out to us. And we as leaders, we as hope dealers need to come alongside and point out to people when we see things going well and help celebrate them when they have those victories.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I appreciate that you really clarify that stance, that it's not about just simply being the one to provide hope to others, because it's certainly, for all the reasons that you mentioned, but I'll add to it, what an exhaustive stance as a leader if you have to be the one who is the sole source of hope in your school, in your organization, in whatever source, that we might be talking about. So I really appreciate that you clarified that, because I think that's an important piece. We certainly as leaders can burn the candle at both ends, get completely exhausted, get completely worn out by doing that. How does helping others discover hope fuel you, as opposed to being that one who you're all about pouring your own hope into others and getting exhausted?
Yeah, I think part of it for me, it's kind of that pay it forward mentality. I have a story, and we don't need to get into all of that here this morning, but I know for me in my life, I've had people who have poured into me, and I've had people who have come alongside me in some dark times and in some of the challenges and struggles that I've experienced. And them helping me find my hope literally changed my life. And so it's just the idea of that. I've always tried to live with that pay it forward mentality. If something's been done to me or for me, how can I pay it forward and help someone else do that? And so it's kind of like, honoring those who have supported and encouraged me. But then also, I think I mean, this is kind of selfish if I'm being honest, but in my role as a principal and a leader, it makes my job a lot easier when I can be a hope dealer for others and I can help encourage them and inspire them and help them, get through maybe a mess that they're going through or solve a problem that they're facing. If I can help them build those skills and then build that agency to say, okay, I can do this, the next time I don't have to be as hands-on. And so and that's fulfilling to me. As a coach myself, I coached basketball for many, many years. I love the opportunity to like get in the trenches and work through the hard stuff or help learn and help figure things out. But I think just like all educators, when we can sit back and watch our students or the people that we've supported and encouraged, when we can see them thriving on their own, like that is just so fulfilling to me. And I think the more that we can multiply and populate the area and the space that we're in with people who are equipped and capable and prepared to then step into that next leadership role on their own, like that's good leadership to me.
Absolutely. Well, that to me is the true definition of servant leadership. I
Mhm,
think a lot of leaders fall into the trap of thinking that servant leadership is just simply doing for others. But
mhm.
really, to me, what servant leadership is empowering others to do for themselves. And that's what you're really talking about there is helping others to be equipped, to be prepared, and you just simply walking alongside them to help get them to where they're supposed to be, which I think is really, really powerful. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. I was laughing a little bit because it sounds like that's the easy way to do leadership. When we talk about it like this and when we have this conversation, it's like, oh yeah, I just get to come alongside people. But it's hard because I think so many of us as leaders, we are wired. Like I'm a fixer and I'm a doer and I'm very type A. I want things done the right way. And so it's easy for me to come in and just like take over a situation. And I come in like a wrecking ball, it feels like, but then I'm going to get it done. And I know in a lot of situations, I know what it takes to get it done the right way. And so it's easier for me to kind of be that control freak and to kind of just take over the situation. And so I have to constantly remind myself, like, hey, this might be the quicker, easier way in the moment, but it's not the right way to do it for the long term. And it's not what's best for that person. Me just taking over and controlling the whole situation isn't going to help that person grow. And so it's harder, it takes more intentionality, but in the long run, it's definitely the right way to do leadership.
Absolutely. And so that's perfect because I want to segue into your transition. You and I've known each other for a long time,
Mhm,
certainly you in other leadership roles, but now being principal at Newburgh High School, and that's a new role for you this school year, July 1. You were telling me before, your superintendent said, "Hey, Mark, guess what we're going to do?" Now you step into that role. And you again, we've known each other a long time. My big thing is to really pour into especially early career leaders.
mhm.
One of the biggest challenges that early career leaders have is what you were just speaking about, finding that patience, that ability to take the step back and not just jump in and go and do for others. A lot of folks that listen to this show are in those early transitional stages. In fact, some, here we are, first episode in January, some might be listening to this on their way to the office and they
Mhm.
just over the holiday break transition from assistant principal to principal. So what are some of the challenges that you experienced early on that kind of relate to what we're talking about here from being the doer, which as an assistant principal, as the AD, you were in charge of the events. You were in charge of, maybe you've got a state event that you're hosting or a regional event or whatever. Now you're in this different role. Talk about some of the transitions, some of the things that you've learned as you've moved from that assistant role essentially into this principal role.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the job is too big to do it all on your own. And, in the different roles that I've had as assistant principal or activities director, athletic director, whatever it's been like, I've had these set of responsibilities. And so I could get them done. And some of them were more checklist type events. I was like, hey, I got to make sure this person's scheduled and I got to make sure this is here at this time. And so it was more of like the to-do list. With the principal job, everything that happens in the school at some point is going to come to my doorstep or come to my office. And so the job is too big to do it on your own. And so that was hard for me to kind of wrap my head around that because I wanted to be involved in everything. And that's who I want to be as a leader. I want to show up and I want to be involved in everything because I want, every group, every club, every teacher, every student who's involved with them, I want them to feel like I see them. And so I what I'm learning though is my presence is sometimes the most important part of my work in that area. And just showing up and being present. I don't have to be involved. I don't have to, know all of the details. I don't have to be a part of the planning for it. But if I can show up and show them just with my presence that I'm supporting them, that I see them, that I value the work and energy that they're putting into whatever it is that they're doing, that can be so powerful. And I think another one of the challenges early on was there's a lot to the job that I don't know just because there's nothing that can prepare you for the job. There's no
Yeah.
program you go through to get your licensure. There's no internship. There's no even observation hours or just being in the assistant principal. You kind of see it, but you don't understand it till you're in the chair, until you're in the job. As a first year principal, as an interim principal, I want people to have confidence in me, right? And so I didn't always ask for help as soon as I needed it. And haven't had any major issues, thank goodness, knock on wood here a little bit. But I think I've learned like it's okay to ask for help. And I think I think it's a good model to those that I'm working with, both the people that are reporting to me that I'm the leader of, but also those who I report to, like my superintendent. He has been so supportive. I'm so thankful for him. But every time I've asked for help, even if I've been hesitant or nervous, I've been so thankful that I did because he's done a great job of not telling me what to do or just giving me the answer, but coaching me through how I should think through that situation. And what I've learned is asking for help that one time has been multiplied in that I've faced many similar situations since. And because of the way he coached me and mentored me through how to think through that or how to get advice from, people who were involved in the situation before I made my decision, it's helped give me confidence and it's helped the next type of similar situation be a much easier. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. And okay, I'm just going to say this too. I've actually started to use that to my advantage. Even when I haven't needed help, I've sought help or I've asked for help. I've kind of used it as a leadership trick because, especially to some of my maybe assistant principals or some of my teacher leaders that I work with, it helps them feel empowered and it helps them feel like they're a part of the decision-making team and they get to have a voice. And so it's one of the ways I've started to encourage and help grow other people as leaders by letting them, even when I probably don't need it, I kind of know what I'm going to do or what I should do, let them have a voice and have a say.
I think that's a really, really powerful tool right there. I love that you brought that one up. That was one that took me a while to kind of figure out, kind of decide that, hey, I should try this. And for me, it wasn't just going to, the groups that you mentioned, but I really was intentional with going to those who I knew were maybe going to be the most challenging or the ones who might
Yeah.
push back the most, or maybe you call them, the resistors or whatever, right? I always made sure I went and got their input. Usually I knew where I wanted to go. And I was very intentional with them to make sure they understood that being heard and getting your way aren't always the same thing. But at least having that time, being intentional, like you said earlier, to go and sit down and just have those conversations with a variety of people. It's back to that piece that you also talked about with your presence. You're giving them the opportunity to at least say, here's what I think, or, hey, Mark, have you considered this? And the truth is, you've probably had a few things come up that you're like, actually, I hadn't thought about that. That's
Oh
really,
yeah.
really good. Whether or not it changed your direction, at least it was oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a really, really good point. So I think that also is just another great example of you walking alongside the other individuals that are a part of your team. I mean, yes, the buck stops with you. You're the one who makes the final decision, but the more voices you can include, the better. You said something earlier before we hit the record button that I want to make sure we talk about that kind of connects with this. You talked about how your superintendent is kind of coaching you through different pieces in your role, especially as a high school principal. And I know you've got a leadership team of 5. So they are very much, like you said, doing the checklist type of work. Your role, certainly different. But a piece of that is growing them and coaching them, just like your superintendent is doing for you. How have you leaned into that? And what are you learning about yourself as a leader as you help grow the other members of your team?
Yeah, I think that's the fun part of the job. It kind of, I think I mentioned, it takes me back to my coaching days a little bit of, working with them and seeing the potential in the different individuals, but then also the potential of the team. And it's kind of like my personal challenge. Okay, how can I get us to that next level? How can I get us to that next step of, hey, we're working together as a really strong unit? And I think for me, I think that's been we circle up around the table. One of our norms as a team is we circle up and we do the work together. And I'm very intentional in my role. I don't sit at the head of the table. We have my office, I have this big conference room table, and I don't sit at the head of it because I don't want, even just without, any words to it, but even just that visual of, oh, Mark's the head of the table. No, I'm just a member of the team. And so I think the biggest way in which I can coach them is how I model my leadership. Because, I can tell them, or I can have direct conversations with them, or I can have, intentional, coaching sessions with them. But I know when I think back about, well, why do I lead the way that I lead? And where did I learn? It was by watching leaders, both leaders that I respect, but also leaders who I didn't really respect a whole lot, and seeing those examples. And so I think the biggest thing for me and how I'm coaching and helping those around me is being the model of the type of leader that I want my building to be filled with. And if I want a bunch of people who are gruff and who are angry all the time and just focus on the task at hand, then if that's how I'm leading, that's what I'm gonna get. I love when I'm speaking and keynoting, one of the movie clips I often use is from Remember the Titans, where Gary and Julius, the leaders of the two teams, that are coming together as one, they're having this argument. And it comes down to Gary's blaming Julius and saying, no, it's all your fault. And you've got a terrible attitude. And Julius' response is so beautiful. One of my favorite lines. He says, attitude reflect leadership, Captain. And so I try to remember every single day that the attitude with which I show up, the way in which I walk the halls, the way I show up in meetings, the way I pay attention or don't pay attention when I'm the one presenting, information at a meeting, the way that I ask questions, the way that I confront people when there's a problem that has to be dealt with, how I do everything is not just dealing with that situation, it's a constant model to those around me. And so I want to make sure I show up with the right attitude. And I think that's the biggest way in which I can coach the people around me to be the type of leaders that I know that they're capable of being and that our school needs.
Absolutely. I say it all the time that if there's something that you want, you better model it. Don't ask anybody to do anything you're not willing to go and do, because they're not going to do it. And certainly you leading as that model and knowing you the way I do, I know that's exactly what you're doing. So I think that's really powerful. Let's circle back a little bit on being a hope dealer and talk specifically about the book, maybe about, you kind of tipped your hand a little bit there, some of the keynotes that you have been doing that are connected to the book. Why the book? Talk about, like, where did that come from inside of you, and what is it that you hope people get from reading that book?
Yeah, this was a fun project. I published a book a handful of years ago, did that one, and it was good and it was successful. But this one, there was a lot of intentionality. It's pretty short. It's a short read. That was the hardest part of writing the book, if I'm being honest, is I took about half of the content, 50% of the content that I originally had, I took it out because I know people have short attention spans. It's hard to find time anymore. So I kept it pretty short, but I did that because I wanted everything in the book to be something that people could walk away and implement or use as an example to then use in their life and in their role. And this book to me is, it's really kind of, if I were to tell you how do I think you should live your life, both as a leader, but just as a person, it's by being a hope dealer. It's by looking for the good in everything around you. It's by showing up for people when they don't know where to go or what to do. You just come alongside them so they know they're not alone. It's making sure you point out the good when you see the good. It's making sure when things are uncomfortable, don't try to get out of the situation, lean in even that much more. And the subtitle to the book, it's Hope Dealer, leaning in to lift others. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of intention with that subtitle. A lot of times as leaders, you think about I watched a lot of football yesterday, right? You think about the football players when the big lineman's on the ground and their buddy goes to pull him up. They grab their hand and then they lean back because they're using their strength to help lift the other person. And being a hope dealer is not about you and your strength. It's, again, just about being present. And I think sometimes the best way we can lift others is not by using our strength to lean back and pull them up, but it's by leaning down and meeting them where they are at so that they can find their strength to take the next step, so they can find their strength and be empowered on their own to then move forward. And so the book is all about it's stories. It's stories about me and my life and my story. It's stories about people who I know and respect, because my dad, who's one of the wisest people I ever met, he told me, he said, if you want people to listen, just tell stories. People are always drawn to stories. So there's a lot of stories in the book, but it's filled with practical, implementable takeaways that you can start using right today. If you read the book today, there's a ton of things you could start doing to be a hope dealer to those around you.
Absolutely. Folks, we'll make sure there's a link down in the show notes so you can go and grab your copy of that book. Mark, we are at that point in the show. I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody here on the podcast. Our next to final question, if you will. This is the Leaning Into Leadership podcast, Mark. So how are you leaning into leadership right now?
Yeah, I think the way I thought about this one, you sent me the questions ahead of time, and maybe an unconventional approach to this question. I'm leaning into leadership right now by taking care of me. And I'm investing a lot in self-care. And, this winter break that I'm coming off of, I enjoyed Christmas, had a great New Year's, did lots of family time. But the best part about it is I just spent time with me. I read a book. I read a novel for the first time since probably high school. I haven't read a novel. One of the best books I've ever read, by the way. You got to get it. But Theo of Golden. Check it out. It's a really, really good read. Good story, but a lot of good leadership lessons in it. I read a novel. I went on a walk almost every day. I spent a lot of time with my girls. I slept on the floor of our bonus room with my girls, and my back hurt the next morning. But, just trying to invest in me and in my family, because the job can be overwhelming. The job can totally take over your entire life if you let it. And I don't want that to happen. I've had that happen in different seasons of my life, and I don't want that to happen again. But also, I think I'll get around to it here. I'm leaning into leadership because I know if I take care of me, if I invest in prioritizing my health and my well-being, I'm going to be a better leader. And I'm going to be the principal that my teachers and my students and my entire school community needs me to be, if I'm showing up as the best version of myself each and every day.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the most important things and one of the most overlooked things. And so I will say this, and I commend you, especially in your first year as the building principal, to be focusing on that self-care is just so, so very important. I think it was about year 3 before I woke up and realized, hey, you're up 35, 40 pounds. You're on both cell phones all the time. You're on your laptop all the time. Even when you're home, you're not really at home. Taking care of yourself is the best way for you to be able to pour into those that you serve. I absolutely love that answer. So maybe unconventional, but a fantastic answer to the question. Mark, people are definitely going to want to get in touch with you. They're going to want to follow you. How do people get connected with Mark Brown?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Hey Mark Brown. I'm on Facebook. You can check me out there also. And then I do have a website, www.markbrownedu.com. But yeah, probably the quickest, easiest way is just reach out to me. You can email me through the website or DM me on Instagram, again, at Hey Mark Brown. But yeah, I'd love to connect with you. The book's available on Amazon. It's only $10 right now. I did a Black Friday sale, and I just decided, hey, let's just keep the price down a little bit. I don't it's not important to me to make money off of this. It's important to me that the message gets out there. So also bulk orders, I've had some people reach out about that. So if you're interested in bulk orders of the book, just reach out to me directly and I can help hook that up for you. Yeah, whatever I can do to support you. If you have ideas for me, if you're a veteran principal or administrator out there and you heard something on here like, hey, Mark needs a little bit of help there or some encouragement there, please reach out to me. Always looking for some coaching and some encouragement. But yeah, whatever I can do to help encourage you to be a hope dealer in your role, whatever your title is, doesn't matter. We all have the ability and the opportunity to be a hope dealer each and every day to those around us. So yeah, take that step and make that part of your goal for 2026 to be a hope dealer.
Outstanding stuff. Man, this has been a long time coming. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. Thanks so much, Mark, for joining me here on Leaning Into Leadership.
Thanks. Appreciate it. This was fun. Happy 2026.
All right, friends, what an amazing conversation with my friend, Mark Brown. The perfect way, I really think, to kick off 2026, to really think about how can we help others find hope by being that dealer in hope. Make sure you go check out all the stuff about Mark down in the show notes and get connected with him. Again, one of my very favorite people. And now it's time for a pep talk. Okay, so here on the pep talk, just a very, very simple thought today. And it builds on everything we just heard from Mark Brown. Each of us as leaders have the ability to inspire others. Our actions, the decisions that we make, and just simply how we show up can either inspire or tear people down. As you head into this new year, as you get ready to go back to work here in the next couple of days, or maybe you're even listening to this podcast on your way back into the office, think about how you show up each and every day, what energy you bring, what presence you have, and how you choose to lead. Be that positive leader. Be that person who is the dealer in hope, like Dr. Brown talked about during today's episode. Folks, it's all about us when it comes to how we choose to show up. That can ultimately impact all the people around us, helping them feel supported, helping them feel like they're valued, helping them feel like they are genuinely part of something special. Hey, that's what I've got for you this week, folks. Thank you so much for listening, for watching us on YouTube. If you've got some friends out there that are not listening to Leaning Into Leadership, folks, send them a link, invite them to join us, and tell them, hey, this is the place you want to be. Continue to up your leadership game. Thank you so much. Get out there and have a road to awesome week.